Hi kids, today I want to talk about how exactly to structure your poster for your scientific presentation. You guys are the experiments, so you actually have it an easier time because almost every poster that's ever been made has been an experiment. And you've got me to help you out every step of the way. This that you see in front of you is a very simple setup for an experimental poster. To briefly go over the parts, you've seen them in the packet that I gave you, but the abstract is a summary of the entire poster, the entire paper. Write that last. The introduction is introducing your topic to your reader. A lot of that's going to come from your literature review. You can have a section on methods and materials. I would typically say just methods and list the things that you used in that section there. You can summarize your results just briefly right there, as well as show them in figures. Make sure that your figures also have captions off the edge there, just like this one here in a smaller text. And then your discussion is just your conclusion at the very end. You would have references. We can make this a smaller text, as you can see. It should be about as big as the captions that we have. I'm going to say around 18-point font or so. And then the acknowledgments, if you choose to put them on there, which certainly you may or may not put on, is just you thanking people who have helped you through this project and helped you through this time. Then you go back and fill in this abstract. And I would say your abstract should be no more than 8 sentences. 2 of those sentences summarizing your introduction, 2 of those sentences summarizing your methods, 2 of those sentences summarizing your results, and 2 of those sentences summarizing your discussion. However, I do want to show you other types of projects so that you know that this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Just because this looks nice and simple and easy doesn't mean you would end up filling up all that space with results or filling up all that space with methods. We have to tailor it to your fit. So here is another example that I have for you with a project from University of Maryland, Baltimore, and St. Louis University. You can see it has the abstract to the left right there. This one's set up in 3 columns rather than 4. I think it's because it's actually a smaller poster than what you're producing here. But we can actually see that they have a background section where they have figures showing the different fish species that they're looking at. Instead of a long introduction section. Now, you probably will have to have more introduction for the people that are walking around by, but there is ways that you can shorten it to look something like this. Same thing goes with the methods section here, and the results and discussion over here are together, so they really didn't leave anything for the viewer or reader to see in the poster to make them show the arguments. The reader is allowed to make their own conclusions based on the cladogram that they have here, as well as they have future directions listed down here, which is one thing that you put in a discussion anyways. They also have a summary at the end, which I would argue that is quite redundant with the abstract up here to the left, but they also have their acknowledgments way down here. What they don't have is any references, which I would argue is not a good setup for a poster. We have enough room. You should put the sources that you cite from your poster. You do not have to cite all your sources, as in you don't have to have all the things from your literature review in your introduction. Instead, what you do put on your poster, you should cite. You do not have to cite things that are not on your poster. Hopefully that makes sense. Here's another example, quick abstract in the top left here from Johns Hopkins. Quick introduction right here. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences. Totally fine to have it short like that. I personally would not put it into bullet points like that because that means that your introduction is meant to be short, that there's not much more than the bullet points. Results are shown in the center here. I think this is a pretty good setup for anyone who's interested in doing it this way because you actually have the entire center board of our posters for the results section. So this would be a good setup as well. They do not have a methods section, so they're implying that you are going to understand what is going on from the results, or at least that the presenter, you are going to explain it to the audience as they come up to your poster. And the conclusion is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences with a little figure right there. One thing that I wish they did was include figure settings for these pictures over here as well as over here. Any pictures are technically figures, so they need to be figure 1, figure 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on. Okay. They did include references. They did include acknowledgments. They included funding. You don't have any particular funding except for me. Future directions is also another way to go with the discussion and conclusion. You do not have to separate them. It's totally fine to keep them together. Here's another example. This individual had a long abstract. I would argue against that. I would recommend staying within 8 sentences. A background is on the shorter side here. It looks like it's a tall poster instead. But they do have their figures listed. Now you can have tables listed separately, or you can call them figures as well. So this could be figure 1 and this could be figure 2. Totally fine to have table 1 instead. They did show their results down here at the bottom. They did it with pictures mostly, and that's okay. They showed their methods in a series of stepwise procedures. I would argue not to do that, but you can totally do that in your poster as long as in your paper you really list out your actual methods. You don't want to keep the audience from knowing everything, but if you do summarize on the poster, it's okay too. We have the conclusion right here, as well as the future plans and the references and acknowledgments there as well. One more for you. Actually, I got a couple more, 2 more. Here is one that deals with something that we won't ever be able to do in class, and that's electron microscopy. Very, very small microscopy, less than microns big. Very short introduction. They did cite their sources there. Very good for them. Methods section that shows a very small subject range there with the specific age ranges that they had, what they did, and what they were interested in finding. They have the pictures without figureheads there and results without figureheads. I would argue that's not a good setup. They do have the model that shows their findings in a more graphic presentation, as in if you like to make some kind of figure that shows what's going on in your graphs in a different way like they did, you certainly can. But notice again the conclusion is shorter than you might expect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. Again, I would argue against using bullet points. To me, it makes you look like you have less to say because you have summarized it even shorter than a person who is writing in full sentences. But I will not prevent you from doing that. I will encourage you not to. Acknowledgments and references and the same thing here. I would not put them together, but you can see that the references are tiny, 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 so there probably wasn't any room for them to separate the acknowledgments and references here. Last one to show you, again, introduction to the left side. We always have the introduction to the left side here because that's where we're going to start reading. And that's why we put the abstract up here so that the individual that can't stay and watch your presentation at your poster can just read your abstract and knows where to find it right away. Again, the results pretty much take up the entire block here, as well as some analysis over here. The difference between results and analysis, results are the hard numbers, the raw data, whereas the analysis is the graphical representation of it. They do have a summary of 3 sentences. They have 3 references, and they have acknowledgments right here. I think this is an adequate poster, but I don't think it's necessarily a good one. I think you guys will produce better ones than this. So, there you have it. If you're looking for specific sections to work on, I highly suggest looking more at my packets. I know it's a lot to read, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. If you'd like help with each individual section, I'm more than happy to help. It takes trial and error, and this is your first trial, so give yourself some credit, give yourself some grace, and give it a shot. Again, this is a nice, simple setup for a poster. It is not necessarily the poster setup that you have to do. You can always set it up in a different way depending on your presentation. Let me know how I can help. I'm here for you guys.